James Burke, also known as Jimmy the Gent, was born July 5th, 1931 in New York City to an Irish immigrant named Jane Conway, who worked as a prostitute. His father was unknown. At the age of 2, his mother gave him up and he was placed in the New York City foster care system, subject to repeated physical and sexual abuse. At the age of 13, while riding in the car of his foster parents, an ensuing argument between Jimmy and his foster father resulted in him reaching back to strike young Jimmy while simultaneously losing control of the vehicle, resulting in an accident in which his foster father was killed. Being placed back into the foster care system, Jimmy finally finding a foster family that showed Jimmy the love and affection he needed. He lived out the rest of his teenage years with the family who adopted him and gave him the last name of Burke. Even though the Burkes, an ever-so-loving family, gave Jimmy all the care and support he needed, the years of prior abuse had hardened his heart. Throughout the years, Jimmy never forgot about the kindness of the Burkes and would always leave envelopes full of cash unmarked at their house. When Jimmy was 18, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison for check forgery. Earlier, he had hooked up with a Colombo crime associate by the name of Dominic Remo Cersani. The teens worked together, often running various schemes, including passing bad checks. The police did all they could in getting Burke to rat out Cersani, but his lips were sealed, so he was sent upstate. This loyalty that was shown came under the radar of some very well-connected associates of the Colombo family, and in prison was very well respected. In 1954, as he was released, he ended up getting a job as a bricklayer. The muscular and tattooed Burke with large hands was known as a stand-up guy, but was also known as a man not to be messed with. According to mob associates, Burke loved doing 3 things: stealing, hurting people, and killing. The 6'3", 230-pound Burke was a very imposing figure and was noticed by a union contact by the name of Paul Vario, a loan shark and top capo of the Lukesei crime family. Vario and Burke became friends and associates. Vario was the brains, and Burke was the brains and the muscle. Burke would go on and run various rackets around the city. One man who owed Vario money and was not paying up was visited and taught a lesson from Burke by giving him a vicious beating and breaking every bone in his face. Later on, Jimmy met a woman by the name of Michelle Marin. Mickey, as she was known, had told him about a boyfriend who had been harassing her. Burke went to visit the man about Mickey, and the man told Burke to buzz off. The day before their wedding, Burke went to see the ex-boyfriend again, but there would be no talking. Later, a human corpse was found cut to pieces with a chainsaw. Burke had kidnapped the man, tied him to a chair, and cut him to pieces while he was alive. Word got around to the New York Police Department that Jimmy the Gent Burke was responsible, but had no proof to arrest him. Burke was a very trusted associate of the Lukesei crime family, but could never be a made man because he did not come from Italian or Sicilian blood. Later, Jimmy would link up with a man named Henry Hill, who would later go on to become a police informant. In 1972, both Burke and Hill were arrested for beating up a gambler who had ran up a large debt. Both men were arrested and sentenced to a decade in prison for extortion. After 6 years, Burke was freed, but his greatest money-making heist was yet to come. The Lufthansa heist took place at JFK International Airport on December 11, 1978. Burke was tipped off about a $6 million shipment of gold, jewels, and cash. At the time, it was the largest cash heist ever committed on American soil. Burke was implicated as the mastermind behind it, but was never brought up on charges, and the money and jewels were never recovered. Of all the people involved, The only person to be convicted was an airport worker by the name of Louis Werner. All of the crew involved in the heist were eventually found murdered by an unknown assailant. Many believe all were committed or ordered by Jimmy Burke. The only member not killed was his son Frank. The end of Jimmy the Gent Burke would come in 1982 when he was convicted of conspiracy in the 1978-79 Boston College Point shaving scandal. Based mostly on testimony from Henry Hill, Burke was sentenced to 12 years in prison. In 1985, Burke, while serving his sentence, was rearrested and charged with the 1979 murder of drug dealer Richard Eaton. Again, Hill testified at trial, and Burke was sentenced to an additional 20 years in prison. On April 13, 1996, James "Jimmy the Gent" Burke died in a Buffalo area hospital of cancer at the age of 64. His life was portrayed by Robert De Niro in the 1990 movie Goodfellas. And here we are on this blustery day at the St. Charles Cemetery in Farmingdale, Long Island. And here is the grave of Mr. James Burke. At the end of the day, good or bad, hey, we love stories like this. The mafia, hitmen, people getting whacked, making movies and TVs about this guy's life, all based on it too. Good or bad. Okay, guys, Lamont at Large, signing out. Peace.